An elderly fisherman pushed his worn wooden boat across the damp sand, panting like a man wrestling with the weight of his own years. Yet his eyes held a faint spark of joy. He had returned with 2 large fish, just enough to feed his 7 children, who fell asleep each night praying their father would return with something to keep hunger away. The fisherman sat on the sand, wiping the sweat from his trembling brow, when he suddenly heard the thunder of hooves approaching. Lifting his head, he saw a rider on a black horse, surrounded by armored guards whose presence alone could silence the waves. The man's heart tightened when he realized who the rider was. Prince Rayan, the only son of the late king, a young man known throughout the kingdom not for virtue or kindness, but for arrogance, pride, and a hunger for power larger than the land he would one day rule. The prince stopped in front of him and cast a cold, condescending gaze upon the old man. "What are you doing here, old one?" he demanded, his voice dripping with superiority. The fisherman replied quietly, "My lord, I am a poor man who lives by the sea's mercy. These 2 fish are my children's only meal tonight." But the prince either did not hear him or did not care to. A mocking smile tugged at his lips as he turned to his guards and commanded, "Take the fish. I have guests this evening, and I will not serve them anything less than this." The fisherman gasped and clutched the fish with hands as thin as dry branches. "My lord, please. If you take them, my children will sleep hungry. I have nothing else." The guards shoved him so roughly that he fell, and within seconds, the fish were seized from his hands. The prince rode away, leaving the old man lying on the wet sand, staring at the sea as his tears mixed with the blood from his scraped palms. He raised his hands toward the sky and cried out, "O Lord, you are justice itself. Show me your sign in this tyrant." In the palace, Prince Rayan was preparing for a grand banquet. His guests, wealthy merchants, high-ranking officers, and nobles who treated common people like insects beneath their feet, filled the hall with laughter and polished arrogance. When the roasted fish, seasoned with saffron and rich spices, were served, the aroma alone seemed to celebrate extravagance. One lord joked, "Did you catch these yourself, my prince?" Rayan laughed loudly. "I took them from an old man who cried after them. He believed the sea belonged to him." The hall erupted with laughter, as if witnessing a comedy performed for their amusement. But just as the prince took his first bite, a tiny bone pricked his thumb. He winced sharply, then scoffed when a guest teased, "Has a fishbone defeated you, your highness?" None of them knew that this tiny wound would soon unravel the prince's life. At sunrise, Rayan awoke feeling a peculiar heat pulsing in his thumb. The swelling was small at first, but the pain throbbed like a hammer striking flesh. He ignored it, believing himself stronger than discomfort. Yet as the hours passed, the pain spread like fire coursing through his veins. His personal physician, a wise old healer long trusted by the royal family, examined the wound. The man's eyes fell to the floor. "My prince, the wound is infected, and it is spreading." Rayan snapped, "Speak clearly. What do you mean?" The physician trembled, then said the words no ruler wanted to hear. "If we do not remove the finger, the infection will reach your blood." The prince struck him across the face and ordered him imprisoned, refusing to hear such humiliation. Doctors from across the kingdom were summoned. All examined the prince. All gave the same verdict: amputation or death. The pain grew unbearable. His fingers turned dark, swollen, and foul-smelling, as though decay itself had taken residence beneath his skin. That night, Rayan dreamed of the fisherman standing before him, pale and dripping with seawater, whispering, "He who steals the poor man's bread loses the flesh from his own bones." Rayan woke trembling, only to find his hand even darker, the infection crawling upward like a shadow intent on consuming him. The prince vanished from public sight. His hand became grotesquely swollen, leaking yellow pus. Even his loyal guards looked at him with silent disgust they dared not voice. His companions, those who had once laughed at every cruel joke, gradually stopped visiting. One night, his younger brother, Salem, came to him and pleaded, "Brother, there is no time. If we do not remove your arm, you will not survive." Rayan stared at him with hollow eyes. "How can I rule with one arm? How can I face the people?" Salem answered softly, "How can you face them if you are dead? Pride saves no one." Rayan let out a laugh, so broken it sounded like weeping. A prince begging to have his own arm removed? How pathetic. On a bleak morning, the physicians gathered, sedated the prince, and severed his arm. His scream echoed through the palace like a dying beast. When he woke and saw the lifeless limb beside him, he broke down crying like a frightened child. From that day, the palace knew no more joy, no arrogance, no laughter. The prince became a wandering ghost, avoiding mirrors, refusing visitors, trembling at shadows. He heard whispers no one else heard, the fisherman's voice haunting every hallway. He who devours the weak is devoured alive by his own weakness. He woke screaming at night, striking his head against the wall, begging the guards to catch the shadow following him. But the only pursuer was his guilt and his punishment. His nightmares grew darker. He saw the sea swallowing him. He saw his rotting arm. He saw the fisherman's face emerging from waves as black as ink. A storm raged outside the palace, rain slashing the windows like knives. Prince Rayan stepped out onto his balcony, rain mingling with tears he no longer tried to hide. He looked over the dark gardens and whispered, "It's over. There is no escape." He lifted his face toward the sky one last time. Then he jumped. The impact shook the courtyard. The guards rushed to him, with Salem at their lead. Salem knelt beside his dying brother, cradled his head, and wept. Had you left those two fish to that poor man, none of this would have happened. But it was far too late. Salem became king and immediately summoned the old fisherman. He compensated him generously and vowed that no injustice would be tolerated under his rule. As for Prince Rayan, his story became a lesson whispered through generations, a reminder that the tears of the poor are never meaningless, and that the oppression of the weak never passes without a price. For injustice never dies. It simply returns, piece by piece, until nothing remains of the tyrant but a name retold by history as a warning. If you've reached the end of the story with us, please leave us a message. Let us know in the comments which country you're watching from, and see you in the next story. Subscribe now. More stories are coming that will touch your heart.